Hi, friends, and welcome back. What if you could directly tap into spiritual help on some very specific topics to help you with your challenges? If you listen to me for any amount of time, you know that I believe strongly in things like spiritual guides, guardian angels, and yes, I believe in God and even in Jesus Christ. But I also believe that we understand only a tiny fraction of the amazing universe that God has gifted us. And believing in spirit guides doesn't mean that you have to give up your belief in God or the Bible or other religions that you might choose to follow. Of course, my belief in things such as spiritual guides wasn't always a thing for me. I was initially a very left-brain person, analytical, but what if the spiritual guides you've been imagining as abstract beings are actually real people, real souls, with names, histories, and a direct investment in your life's work? I know it sounds crazy, but for over a decade, I've operated under a brilliant framework from a book called Hiring the Heavens by Jean Slatter, treating the unseen world like a specialized workforce. So following her guidance in the book, I set up a department for managing projects, a department for public speaking at Masonic events, a department to help me with my genealogy research, and even a department for travel planning when I was making overseas travel. All this came about at the suggestion of an amazing man, now in spirit, a friend and a Masonic brother named Peter Gallitzin. Peter gave a talk back in 2012 about this book, and I was fascinated listening to him describe it. I was a skeptic, but I respected him. So I purchased the book. I decided to implement the book's main thesis, and this is way back when I was still a very structure-oriented project manager person, and I took the book to heart, and I created the matrix that you see here. Now, mine's pretty complicated because I tend to overdo things, but this is what I used when I was making plans for specific things. But the reason for this podcast right now is that over the last few months, through a stunning series of mediumship sessions with a friend that I'll call the reluctant medium, because she didn't ask for this, the curtain has flown wide open. So some of the anonymous boxes on my organizational chart started to fill themselves in. Today, I want to take you on a short journey from a practical spreadsheet to what I now consider to be an undeniable living reality. For a long time, I viewed this matrix as a highly effective psychological and spiritual tool, a way to focus my intent and kind of let synchronicity handle the details. For example, when I was about to give a public talk to a Masonic audience, and this was years ago, I'd still use it if I needed it today, but when I was about to give a public talk, I would use this team concept. I would consult my Masonic team and ask them. I would do my homework, of course. So I knew the subject. I didn't expect to be divinely inspired or to channel anything. I knew what I was talking about. But once I prepared, I then asked my public speaking and Masonic team to help me make sure that I covered all the details and put things in a way that they could effectively reach my audience. I assumed and still assume that spirit knows who I'm talking to and the best way to communicate. And so the result of that was that I knew things would be okay, allowed me to relax, and I didn't stress over any of my talks. I just saw it as a way to communicate ideas to people with the knowledge that my spiritual team would ensure that I did it in the most effective manner. Some of the recent examples where I've seen spirit come through have blown me away. For example, my paternal grandmother, my father's mother, came through, my reluctant medium friend. And when she contacted me, she introduced herself. She said some things that made it very clear to me who she was. Won't get into all that, but I'm convinced that I was able to connect with my grandmother that way. She was aware of the genealogy research that I was doing. It's incredible. Now, I don't have her as part of my genealogy research team in the Matrix, but she introduced me to her mother as part of this spiritual session. Now, just as a quick background, I wasn't sure who her mother was. I wasn't sure who my great-grandmother was, her mother, because my father, he came along very late in life in their lives, and he didn't remember exactly the woman that was his grandmother was. He remembers her as being someone named Eva, And I now know that that memory that my father had was of the second wife of his grandfather. So I don't want to make this too complicated, but I wasn't sure whether my great-grandmother was named Eva, the second wife, or Eunice, my great-grandfather's first wife. So I found different records that had both names on them. But my grandmother, as part of this session, and as part of being my genealogy consultant, if you will, she introduced her mother as Eunice. And I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask her that question, but she brought forward this person and introduced her as Eunice. So it was clear to me that Eunice was her mother, and Eunice disappears because she got divorced. They were married in 1889. They were divorced by 1900. I asked her if her mother had remarried, and the answer through the medium was yes, her mother had remarried. And then I've been unable to find any information about this woman, where she died, where she's buried, and I asked where she passed away. And my grandmother showed the medium a picture of the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. So it's just amazing to me how spirit decides to communicate sometimes and explain ideas and explain concepts. Of course, the medium had no clue why she was seeing the Liberty Bell, but I understood that as meaning Philadelphia. And so now my research is concentrated in Philadelphia, trying to find where my real great-grandmother, Eunice, remarried and is, the death certificate for her. So it's pretty amazing how spirit does this through the reluctant medium. Now I can hear my genealogist friends saying things like, that's just great for you. We all can't just go out there and hire somebody who's a medium and find somebody that we can talk to in spirit that can help us break through brick walls. Every genealogist has brick walls, right? So I don't think that's possible for everybody. I didn't expect it. I didn't ask for it. But here's what I think happens when you hire the heavens, if you will, and follow the suggestions in Slatter's book. They create synchronicities that will cause things to happen. So you won't necessarily have a medium that tells you very specific information. Your great-grandmother died in Philadelphia, but you may find the right book or find the right record that will lead you to solve some of your brick wall issues. So nowadays, especially with AI, there's incredible things that are happening. There's something on FamilySearch.org, genealogy site, that uses what they call full text search. And once you learn how to use that, you can find a lot of additional things. But I believe that using the spiritual team concept, you will be able to break through with these little breakthroughs and synchronicities. So here's what it might mean for you. Yes, you can hire the heavens, and I'm not trying to sell Miss Slatter's book, but I think the concept is valid. There have been many times that synchronicities have happened when I've asked for help on a specific problem as part of a team that I put together for this. Travel plans, things just seem to fall into place. I managed to get the right flight, or I managed to get the right hotel. I asked, when I was going on a motorcycle trip, many times I would ask not only to be protected or for safety, but also that I would find the right route or route, however you say that. But I would find the right way to get where I need to go. And I was always planning trips, and I was always kind of the trip planner. And I would ask for guidance from motorcycle experts in spirit that could help me with that. So, of course, you can read about my story and how I transitioned from being this left-brain person to someone who now enthusiastically embraces spiritual help in my book, The Soul Unleashed. There's links here, and you can find it on Amazon. But I ask you to at least consider that you do have spiritual guides and that you do have a guardian angel. This podcast isn't about your guardian angel, but I definitely believe that I have one. I talk about that in my book also. But you can go even beyond that special group to ask for specific help in specific special areas. Heaven is apparently full of unemployed experts in genealogy, travel, finance, real estate, project management, biology, and you can ask for their help, and they're waiting for you to ask, and they're anxious to help you. So, hope you find this interesting. Please feel free to check out Miss Slatter's book, Hiring the Heavens, or mine, The Soul Unleashed. But I hope that you find that in doing this, it makes a real difference for you, like I did. Bye-bye.